Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Community Connections brought to you by our Elixir Kitchen team from the Cancer Rehabilitation and Survivorship Program at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. First off, just a huge thank you again to Colorectal Cancer Canada for their wonderful presentation earlier. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, don't worry, we will be posting it on our YouTube channel. Probably by tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch the presentation in its entirety. But again, just a big thanks again to their team. Welcome. My name is Jeremy Capone. I am the wellness chef, and joined as always the amazing registered dietitian Daniela Cavini. Hello, Daniela.
Hi, Jeremy. Hi. Today we are featuring some quick and easy recipes that are tailored to meet the nutrition needs of people living with colorectal cancer. Whether you're going through treatment or you're recovering from treatment, gastrointestinal problems, nausea with or without vomiting, low appetite, low energy can make eating well difficult. And if your treatment included something called a low anterior resection, you may have increased frequency and urgency to move your bowels, or you might be experiencing constipation with incomplete emptying. Modifying the type and amount of fiber. So more and more we learned that there are so many different types of fiber, not just soluble and insoluble, may be one way to manage these symptoms and stay well nourished. And also staying hydrated is important because it's so easy to get dehydrated when you have diarrhea, vomiting, or high output from your ostomy. So as usual, Jeremy has worked his magic to actually create 3 nutritious and delicious recipes that take into account the struggles you may be experiencing if you have colorectal cancer. I'll also take a moment to say that whatever we present today, if it conflicts with the advice you've been given by your healthcare team, or if you're seeing a dietitian to help you with your challenges, please just bring this forth to them to see if it's okay for you to do. We know that it's very individual, the symptoms you're experiencing, and sometimes the advice is more specific. But what we're going to do today is talk about the manipulation of fibers and also looking at hydration. Okay, so our 3 recipes are comforting carrot and kelp broth, pastellon, which is very interesting, and Jeremy will tell us a little bit more about that history. And then a banana bread mug cake. Sounds good, huh? So our first recipe, the comforting carrot and kelp broth. So we talked about diarrhea and vomiting, and with that, your body can lose large amounts of water, nutrients, and essential minerals like potassium and sodium. Potassium and sodium are also referred to as your electrolytes, and risk of dehydration is high. This soup, you could consider it to be a homemade oral rehydration solution. It's rich in salt, potassium, and other minerals that help to replace your fluids. It's simple to make, but definitely not simple in flavor when Jeremy gets his hands on it. So off to the kitchen.
Thank you, Daniela. Okay, so yes, we're going to jump into the first recipe. Like Daniela mentioned, something that offers a more hydration. This is a very simple broth, but using a few, pantry staples that you might have, we can still add a lot of flavor, we can still add a lot of character, so that it is still very enjoyable. So we're making a carrot, like Daniela mentioned, carrot, kelp, broth with a little bit of miso in there as well. And very simple, 3 ingredients. So we're going to start off with the carrots first. We'll put it down here. Start off with the carrots first, and very simply just washed, peeled carrot, and then continuing with that peeler. What I want to do is just continue to peel. So I'm using this Y peeler, even if you have a sort of standard peeler, just to continue to peel strips off of that carrot. It is a little bit easier if it's a little bit of a bigger carrot, and it doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to be perfect. But what we're doing is we're creating these ribbons so that it steeps, the flavor will steep in our water a lot quicker. We'll get a little bit more color from it, we'll get a lot more flavor. But I think most importantly, it's the speed at which we'll be able to prepare this broth. It shouldn't take really more than 5-10 minutes in total. So, got all of my peeled shavings here of the carrot. And what I'm going to do is I have a pot of water just on a medium heat. So it's like barely simmering. So just small bubbles. I don't need an aggressive boil on that. And I'm going to go ahead and add my carrot ribbons to the pot just to start steeping in there. This is going to give it, like I said, some color, some flavor, definitely a little bit of sweetness to balance out with a little bit of the saltiness that is going to come from the next two ingredients. So the next ingredient being our kelp. This might not be an ingredient that you have as a pantry staple. For some of you, it might be, but you can definitely find it in some grocery stores for sure. You can order it online. There's different varieties. It is seaweed. If you don't know what kelp is, it is essentially seaweed. It comes from the ocean. And this is a pretty standard staple in a lot of Japanese cuisine, especially in a lot of their dashis or their broths, their flavorful broths. And what this does is it brings a lot of umami, a lot of savoriness to your dish, whether you're making a broth, whether you're making a soup, even like a sauce or stew. This can have this really, really wonderful depth of flavor. You wouldn't think it's seaweed, right? If you're not used to eating seaweed. But what we're doing with this, and you find it dried, it's sort of, it looks salted, but it's actually just the water, salt water from the ocean, and it's, crispy, it's hard. And you can store it in your pantry. And what you do is when you're ready to prepare this, you take a piece out. I would give it like just a quick rinse and then soak it in some cold water, even for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to start to reconstitute it, but also to continue to rinse some of that salt off. It is a lot of salt that's caked on there. And there could be some, this comes from the ocean, right? It's a natural product, some sand on there as well. So once I do that, I'll rinse it, soak it in a little bit of water, and then you can even give it another rinse afterwards if it's really caked on. This one's not too bad. And what you end up with is this wonderful kelp. It's wonderful seaweed that is more texture-wise, it just feel it's a little more natural, or it feels a little more like its natural state, right? A little more flexible. So we're going to go ahead and add this. We have our carrot, and we have our kelp now in there. The water, and again, if you look at the bottom, you can see some of that salt. You can see some sediment as well. So it's good. We'll discard that. And then the last thing we're going to add, and again, just a gentle simmer. I don't want anything too aggressive in terms of a boil. The last thing we're going to add is a little bit of miso paste. This is one thing I usually always have on hand. It's a great way to add, again, a big depth of flavor, really nice savoriness, really nice umami to your sauces, to your soups. Even if you want to make it a quick veg broth, and you don't want to use, or you don't have the pre-made ones, you don't want to do from scratch. It's very simple to just mix some miso with some warm water and you're good to go. Now you can add that veg broth. The recipe calls for veg broth. So I'm going to add a tablespoon. You can add it to taste. This is where your sodium, this is where your salt is going to come from. So maybe add a little bit, taste it. If you need to add more, you can add more, but depending on how much you make. And I'm going to stir that in. And once that is dissolved, again, just let this steep and simmer for like 5 minutes. And then we're going to strain. We're going to go ahead and strain that. So I don't know if Danielle, if you had anything else to chime in with while I get the other.
Sure. So with you're straining the broth, but if you wanted to also, if you're able to, based on your condition, have a little bit of the carrot and the kelp, you would be actually getting some soluble fiber. And soluble fiber is unique in that it can improve both constipation and diarrhea, normalizing your bowel function overall. It holds on to water. It in the GI tract, it forms a gel. And these gelling properties help to make your bowel movements a bit more formed. And that's why when we talk about soluble fiber, it can be useful if you have diarrhea, or it can be useful if you have constipation. It slows the way we describe it is that it slows the transit time. So the time it takes for food to travel from the top of your gut to the bottom. And by slowing that transit time, food moves through your gut more slowly, therefore absorbing more water in the process. So this might be helpful if you're having that sense of urgency. And then the other good things about soluble fiber is it can also be good for heart health. It can be good for helping control blood sugars. And then the carrots also are adding some potassium. So we're getting some electrolytes there. So that's good. And then the sodium, the salt from the miso. That's it. I know I talked too much.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Daniela. All right. So we have a pot here where we've had it steeping for closer to 10 minutes. But again, what I like to do, especially with the kelp, is the longer you leave the kelp in, the more oceany. That's not a word, but I think you get what I'm going for there. The more sort of saltiness that you're going to get from the kelp. So if you like it on the lighter side, maybe steep it closer to 5 minutes. If you like a little bit more of that flavor to come out, then definitely steep it, a little longer. Go 10-15 minutes for sure. And here's what we have. Try not to spill it, but give you an idea of the color there. And for this version, I'm going to go ahead and strain it through. But like Daniela mentioned, you can definitely, if you want to keep the carrots to eat those as well, definitely do that. Or you can even save the carrots and add it to a different dish. If you're just looking for that really simple, clear broth here. And again, see if I can tilt it a little bit more, but you have it almost looks like this really nice tea, almost like this golden yellow tea, which is the aroma's incredible. If you're familiar with like miso soup, obviously that is going to come to mind because of the miso. But with the carrots, like I mentioned, that sweetness that you're going to get from the carrots, it just balances really, really well with the carrot, with the kelp and the miso. So you have a little bit of that salty, a little bit of that sweet. So that it's just a really nice, comforting broth. And like Daniela mentioned too, because of that sodium, it's a great option for replenishing electrolytes. So there we go. There is our first recipe, our comforting carrot and kelp broth.
It looks wonderful, and I like how you're serving it in a mug, so it's very easy. You can just drink it and get the fluids you need. Yes, give us a sample there. Give us an example. Okay.